All right, I think we're good to jump right in here. So I'll go ahead and I'll share out my screen. And if anybody has any questions about Geotab in general, feel free to type them in that Q&A section, and I'd be happy to walk through it together here. So we're going to take a look at just the what's new. If you aren't aware, we at AdvantageOne send out this what's new webinar, what's new Pulse newsletter every month. This is actually upcoming news that has not been sent out yet, and ideally will be sent out hopefully tomorrow, if not on Thursday. But it's the Geotab What's New, and this is where I generally pull all of the information that you see in that newsletter. If you'd like to receive this newsletter, please feel free to reach out, and I'll make sure that everybody on this webinar is included in that newsletter. This is my testing database, and this is where we'll be looking over any questions you might have today. Some big things I want to mention right off the hop here is if your Geotab does not look like mine does, this is likely to do with beta features being enabled or disabled for your account. And while I don't recommend enabling all of them blindly, I do advise you look through these options and choose them accordingly. It is definitely beneficial to use those beta features before they're pushed out in your global environment. To access beta features as a single user, you simply click your name in the top right corner, press on Profile, and then hop over to the beta features option. From here, you can simply toggle on or off any of the features, or you can simply toggle them all on at the top here as well. Sometimes if you or your coworker have some discrepancy in information, I would advise verifying the beta features are tied up for both of you. Make sure they're both the same, as that can definitely cause a little bit of a discrepancy between what you and a coworker might be looking at. There are lots of important things in the Geotab beta features, with the big one being trip history. This has been here for quite some time at this point, so it is very likely something that will be pushed out in the near future, and it's definitely a big change, something that I think everybody should be accustomed to before it's pushed over officially. Obviously, the last big one that was pushed over was the Geotab maintenance scheduling, and that is now available for every database user, and it's definitely a big change that we received a lot of questions about. So if you have any other questions about the Geotab maintenance, please feel free to let us know today, and this will be an ideal time to look over that feature, because obviously it's a very large change opposed to what was previously available in Geotab. Another big feature here that you might see is Geotab Ace. If you've utilized any AI or language learning models in the past, Geotab has actually developed their own and built it inside of Geotab here. After you enable it, you can actually see it in not only one, but two spots, one here on the left-hand panel and one up in the top corner here by your name. We can actually go ahead and give this a try right now while we're waiting for some questions to come in. So I can go ahead and I can ask it a question. You can see it's now expanded a little wider than it was when this initially came out in beta. We can ask it basically any question you want, but it also does it has options here for the main pillars. I'll choose operations, and I'll say, let's see all my vehicles by total miles driven this year. So we're going to go ahead and try to run that question here, and it'll actually generate a response based off the information it's able to pull from my Geotab database. This is a small database of only one asset, so it shouldn't take an overly long time to generate this response, and obviously it won't show me any extraneous data here. So there we go. We got one pulled up right away, showing that my Subaru has been driven 2,403 miles this year. Pretty low kilometers. Hopefully that gets a better insurance policy rate for next year, ideally. Optionally here, I've got some other non-tracked assets showing up, including a crane and a rental vehicle that I've used for testing purposes. Obviously, these have both shown up here as they are on my list of assets, but they do not have any information gathered from this. On top of this, you can even download this as a report, which is obviously very helpful. Other things you can do is you can even compare data from last year to this year. My Geotab device in my vehicle is fairly new, as is this database, so I will not have any data from last year. But if you wanted, you could ask to compare it now from this year to last year and see the total increase in miles driven from last year to this year. While looking at this, I'm actually going to go ahead and bring up the trip history as well, because I do think that's very important. And to do so, I'm going to see if we have some information here on our testing database. So I'm going to jump over to the trip history panel, and we can show what it previously looked like as well as what it looks like now. So we'll go ahead and see if this decides to load for me, which ideally it will. But obviously, since I'm now presenting to a webinar, it very likely won't load for me, simply because that's how this generally works, unfortunately. So we're going to jump in here first and turn off the trip history. We're going to save those changes. And we're going to jump into the trip history to show you what it currently looks like for anybody who does not have that feature enabled. It looks like my Geotab is having a little bit of a tough go right now. but it does look like it's now appeared. So this is what you've seen in the past with this little bar at the top, and you can select your asset from the list. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if any of these vehicles have been driving in the past month or so. So I'm going to try to make my best call and pick somebody who I think maybe has been on the road. And for that, I will say maybe Brad is the best target here. I'll take a look at Brad's vehicle and see if he's been out. Unfortunately, it does not look like he has been. So we will take a look at my vehicle, as it does have some traffic here from the last couple of days. So again, I'm going to jump into my settings and I'm going to disable that trip history option. And I'll save that option here. And we'll take a look at trip history from what it normally looks like to what's going to be coming out here soon. So like I showed on the other database, it has the filtering option at the top here, the panel appearing on the right, and then the options on the left. So I'll go ahead and I'll choose my Subaru, and we can see the trips going on today. This is how it looks initially here. We can click on the trip. We can see the movement that was taking place. The new beta feature is a whole lot cleaner in my opinion. And while yes, it is a very large change, I do think it is overall a positive change, as it really cleans up the interface. It kind of unifies what you're used to seeing on the Geotab platform. So we'll go ahead and we'll go back into productivity and trip history, and we'll look at the same information. We'll look for my Subaru for today. And you can now see that it divides it into the specific days as well as the driver, even if you do have associated drivers. In this situation, I believe we're looking at the last week, because I can see it's in chronological order. Looking at Halloween, the 31st to the 1st to 2nd, 2nd to 3rd, 3rd to 4th, and then finally today. You can click on any of these to see the specific trip taking place. So I'll go ahead and I'll view this trip on the map, and we can actually see that I went up here towards Costco and then back towards my home. If you even want to go a step further to watch this trip in progress, you can actually press the live preview button, and you can watch the vehicle on the map move in real time. By default, it will load up at 20 times speed, but if you really want to see this trip take place in no time at all, you can bump it up to 200. This is ideal for maybe you get a call in from somebody saying that something might have occurred. You can go ahead and actually look at that information on the map and see how this person was driving 83 kilometers an hour in an 80 zone. Something might have actually happened in that instance. Does anybody have any questions about the new trip history feature within Geotab? I guess I should have probably started by saying you guys can all see the screen. Everything looks fine on your side.
Yeah, it's looking good, Jordan.
All right, fantastic. I'll just give everybody a few minutes to see if they have any questions about the Geotab trip history at all before we jump into some more what's new. How does this work in no cell range? That's a fantastic question. So the Geotab device actually can have logging built in. So what I could do is I could do a Geotab rate plan comparison. This is just an easy spot to look to see where how many logs a Geotab device can store here. So looking at the Geotab Go 9B device, we can see right here, it says on memory logging for out of coverage situations. It says up to about a month of driving is what they anticipate. So right now it says 80,000 logs is how many specific pieces of data these Geotab devices can stay on their device. So if I were on my map here and I were to drive way out in the middle of nowhere, in theory, I could drive around for about a month before I come home. And then once I'm back in that cell coverage, everything will be uploaded in chronological order. And again, can be shown just like this on the map. There might be some instances where the map, instead of having a solid line, might look like a caterpillar trail, as I think what they call it, where it's little dashes instead of a solid line. That generally means that the coverage was a little lower. And I'll be honest, I've seen a lot less of that in the last couple of months. So I do think that the coverage is getting better just in general as the world progresses with cellular technology. Optionally, there are some Geotab satellite availabilities, which will give you that kind of wider range of coverage, but with definitely a cost associated, both in terms of monetary cost and also the amount of data you get. Obviously, using the cellular network, it'll be a little bit less data coming through. You'll only see what's absolutely required of you. You'll see the ignition status. You'll see a little bit of trip history information, but not a whole lot else. You will not be able to go in and see the oil level or anything like that. It'll only send through what is most important. But that's a fantastic question. I think that also does apply to the Geotab drive side of things. Say if I was using HOS logs and I was out in the middle of nowhere, the key in that instance would be making sure that your vehicle is in, if possible, of course, is in coverage when you start your day and in coverage when you end your day. That way the logs will stay as updated as possible. Geotab does do their best to make sure everything is well documented, well cached on both the cellular device as well as on the Geotab device to be uploaded once service is back in coverage. I suppose once you're back in coverage, everything should be uploaded that way. The other option is there is an iOX USB, which will actually plug directly into the Geotab device, then into your cell phone, and then that can pull the data directly from the Geotab device to your cell phone, making for those off-duty logs, or sorry, out-of-coverage logs a little bit more accurate overall. So fantastic question, Stephanie. One other thing I really want to touch on that I think kind of got swept under the rug a little bit from Geotab is actually just the new faults screen in general. If you aren't aware, Geotab recently paired with a company called Noragon to give a much wider range of vehicle faults and just faults in general. So I'm going to see if I have any faults on my vehicle here from the last couple of months. And unfortunately, I don't have any actual vehicle faults. I'm seeing we've got some telematics device faults, but I'm not seeing anything vehicle related. So I'm going to hopefully find a fault here that I can show you what I'm looking for. Basically what it is Noragon can dig deeper than Geotab has in the past, and they can use this information to actually provide you information on what the impact of the vehicle is or what the breakdown rate is. Possible fixes. You can even apply a cost to the fixes here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at every vehicle here on the fleet. I'll just choose a big list. Unfortunately, it looks like the select all button is not available for me right now on this testing database. So we'll just go ahead and we'll select as many as I can, and we'll see if hopefully I'm able to get a fault appearing that I'm able to show off today. Unfortunately, we've got 0 faults showing up. I'm going to go ahead and take a step further. I'm going to pull up a company that I work with here, and ideally you can find a fault related to that so I can show you exactly what we're looking for. Because obviously I want to show you this new faults page, and I want to show how powerful it is. Another key before I show this is I have to mention that this is actually free of charge. This is included in a wide range of the rate plans. Geotab is moving towards the single rate plan feature with just the Go plan, and this will be included with the Go plan. So I'll go ahead and I'll just pull up a list here of my feet. I'll just pull up a vehicle. Hopefully we find one with a fault code, and I can show you what that looks like. All right, so I'll bring this back over. I'll do F11 just to hide a little bit. And I'll go ahead and I'll select one of these vehicles. So we'll go ahead and we'll grab this vehicle here. It's showing a P code of P0400. And I'm not much of a mechanic myself, so I would not know what this exact means other than it's an EGR-A flow. I can actually click on this fault code, and it'll now open a new panel on the right-hand side, giving me a much wider range of information than I would have had before. So I can see not only the odometer value, the engine hours, and the VIN, but I can also see how many times the specific thing has been logged. I can see the effect on the vehicle, for instance, decreased engine performance. I can even see recommended action for the specific vehicle here. So contact a professional mechanical shop for diagnosis and repair. And this specific fault is causing a 2.99% risk of breakdown in the next 1,000 kilometers, or about 650 miles. So that's a really nice feature to have here as well. Like I said, this is the free version of Noragon. If you were to pay for it, you could actually get even a wider range of information provided to you. But overall, I find the free version is extremely powerful, and I've had a lot of good success with that so far. All right. Does anybody have any questions at all about this so far? Or would you like me just to keep walking through some of the new features within Geotab? All right, I can keep showing off some stuff then here because there's been obviously lots changed in the last couple of months within the platform here. And ideally, we can start doing these kind of what's new webinars at a more frequent basis because I know lots changes and it's hard to keep on top of it, especially if you're not doing stuff within Geotab every day. It does become quite daunting. So the next big thing is probably simply how they're adding cameras into the platform. If you aren't aware, Geotab is making a very large push into the camera space, which is fantastic because I think cameras are the #1 safety improvement companies can be making right now. Obviously, you want that protection on your side, on the driver's side, on the safety side of everything. So in the past, you had to generally add an add-in to go ahead and add those Geotab cameras to your database. But now it's simpler than ever. You can simply hop into your assets page, click on your vehicle, and you can add a camera here directly now without having to do any extra steps. Under devices and settings, I can go ahead and simply add another camera. I can go into camera, I can select either Surfsight, Zergo, or Go Focus Plus, or the standard Go Focus model. Once you go ahead and do that, you enter in the serial number, press save, and everything gets paired for you automatically. On top of that, another panel will actually appear right here, allowing you to make customizations to your camera, including both the ADAS sensitivity, if you want to adjust the settings for those cameras, if you have the AI integrations with forward or driver facing. You can even go ahead and turn on or off any of the features here as well. On top of that, everything will now be safely secure under the video recordings tab, meaning that no third-party devices or installations will have to be completed. Stuff will now simply flow directly from that asset into the video recordings. Another key with this new camera integration is it goes a step further than that and actually applies directly to the trip history, where you can simply see the information of those recordings directly on the trip history screen. So everything's pairing together extremely seamlessly, where in the past it was a little bit more clunky. Now it's more seamless than ever. If you have any information, or if you want more information about cameras, please feel free to reach out to your CSR, and they'd be happy to provide information about the new Go Focus Plus. Other information with cameras is, depending on your camera, you can actually set up these rules to record video segments. So in my situation, I don't currently have a camera installed in my vehicle, but if I did, I could jump into any of these vehicles or any of these rules here and set it up as a camera recording instance. So we can see under speeding here, I can go to media upload, and I can choose whether I want a video recorded or a simple snapshot recorded, which is again very helpful for a lot of this liability and safety coverage. Another thing might be worth mentioning is cameras also seamlessly pair in with Go Analytics. If you currently have the Go Analytics safety dashboard enabled on your database, you can actually see the camera events all occurring directly within Go Analytics as well, which again is a great way to track and increase your safety score across your entire fleet. I think my last point I want to talk about really quick is simply searching assets. I know this is kind of a more basic topic after covering what I have been, but a lot of people don't know how to search for things within Geotab, and this is probably the best thing I can talk about right now, just for simply easing your usage of the platform. If you have hundreds and hundreds of assets, it might be daunting to either scroll through everything, but I'm hopefully going to change your mind on how you can search within Geotab. So the first most basic option is you can simply search by grouping. You can open up this groups panel, and I could say, hey, I only want to see my crane, and then just like that, only assets in my crane will appear. But if maybe you don't know where this vehicle is applied or assigned to, you can search by multiple parameters here. I can actually go ahead and search by Subaru. I can search by my asset name, and it'll appear for me here. I can also search by my serial number. If I maybe know the serial number starts with a G9, there it is. I can even go ahead and search by my comment. So I can search by 2023, and we can actually see that it's now searching by the comment field as well. So I think that's a really nice feature as well, especially if you do have lots of assets on your database and you want to easily search through that way. More information on the assets page include this filters option in the top right corner. From here, you can actually expand down and see even a wider range of information. Not only can you see all of your assets natively here, you can actually go ahead and filter it deeper down than this standard filter option allows you to. You can search by your powertrain options, by your asset types, but even you can go ahead and look for archived vehicles. Applying this filter will now show me that I did have an Impreza filter or an Impreza asset added earlier. It has since been archived. I can see by that logo here. If maybe this Impreza is now back in my fleet, I can simply click on this archived asset, go to asset options, and I can restore this vehicle for me. If you don't want to see the archived assets, again, just repeat those steps by pressing filters, disable show archived, and go ahead and apply those changes. Other features that are now available under the assets page include these new widget options. I'm just back in my other testing database, which obviously has a wider range of assets. From here, we can actually go ahead and see offline devices and terminated devices. There's even water intrusion, possible loose connections, other options here as well. And not only do these appear at the top, they're actually auto filtering. So if I wanted to only see my offline devices, I can go ahead and press offline. It'll filter by only those vehicles. Reselecting this option will now bring back the entire list. Same goes to the other options that do appear here. All right, I see we got a question coming in. I'm going to take just a moment here to read it. All right, so I've got a question here about pre and post trip inspections within Geotab, which is a fantastic question. Again, kind of tying back into the Geotab Drive side of things, which is perfect. So I'll go ahead and I'll just touch on this quickly here as well. So if you aren't aware, Geotab not only tracks vehicles, but can also track your hours of service logs. And part of that includes the inspections that a vehicle must happen if they're being regulated by any kind of enforcement agency. To access these settings, you can open up the compliance dropdown. Sorry, not the compliance dropdown, the maintenance dropdown, and you should see asset inspection here. To start off, we can actually go ahead and we can look at any inspection the vehicle has. So I'll go ahead and I'll choose my Subaru. I'll say I'll give it some big window of time here because obviously I'm not driving for hours of service, but I know I do have a few options here. So bringing back that window, I can now see that my last inspection occurred here on 10/21/25. Where I said there was actually a slow to release brake going on, and it has been repaired here. This question is more asking about vehicle inspections taking place or not taking place. So there are a few places we're able to see that information. For one, I can go into groups and rules, and I can look under rules. We can actually set up a inspection. So we can have a pre and post trip inspection missing, and this will actually generate an exception or a log anytime one of these is not completed. So basically what it'll do is it'll toggle these on for right now. And we can see right now, this rule identifies a driver who started their trip but did not complete a pre-trip inspection. You can even give it a grace period if you'd like, as well as a distance traveled. So basically if somebody drives for under 1.61 kilometers or 1 mile, the inspection is not required. As soon as it gets past that specific parameter, it will be triggered. And then you can see that as a dashboard report or as an emailed report or however you like it set up. Based off of this rule exactly, you can actually jump right into this option right here, and you can choose to send it as an email every time this occurs, which is then easier to be selected here. Okay, we got another question here about pre and post trip, so I'll go ahead and I'll touch on that here as well for you today. So I'm just going to jump back to the previous question first, see if I've solved any questions. If a vehicle shows up without a name, does that mean the vehicle was moved without anyone logging an inspection? Yeah, so that's also correct. So I'll take a look at my driver logs for myself here as well. I'll see my logs are here. I've been off duty for some amount of time here, but we'll take a look at my logs regardless. Ideally, we could find an instance where I was actually driving my vehicle here. I'm not sure why it's not assigning me to any of these vehicle logs. I guess because I haven't logged into the vehicle. But yes, you're correct. If the vehicle is showing up on the list with no pre-trip inspection showing before that trip, that does mean that there was not a pre-trip inspection performed on the specific vehicle. And that is, again, something that can be caught by that rule, which evidently can be put into a report that you can get a copy of on a daily instance or whatever it might be. So Laura, did that answer your question at all? Or if you'd like, I could follow up post meeting here and I could help you out with that further. Perfect. I'm glad to help. If you need any assistance at all getting that rule set up in your environment or getting a dashboard report or an email report set up around that, please let me know and I'd be happy to help. As for you, I'm going to go ahead and help you out with this pre and post trip inspection. So what I'll do is I'll simulate the Geotab Drive app. If you aren't aware, Geotab has a phone app companion called the Geotab Drive app, and that is where the drivers will actually log into the platform, connect themselves to vehicles, and start those asset inspections as well as logging their hours. So to simulate this, I'll just simply bring up my database, and I'll just do /drive after my database, which will simulate a Geotab Drive instance. So this is basically just like what you'll see on the cell phone, just on a phone or on a computer screen here. So what'll happen is it'll load up my interface here. If I'm on a vehicle, it'll actually, or if I'm on my phone, sorry, it'll show me a list of vehicles in my area. For today, I'll go ahead and I'll type in my vehicle and I can select it. It'll now go ahead and sync up any logs with that vehicle and allow me to approve or deny any logs that might be associated to that vehicle. After I've selected my vehicle, my trailer, and my shipment, if I choose to, I can save and continue. And now you see I've got all these unverified logs. I'll say, yeah, I didn't drive any of those days. I'll verify all those days off and I'll move on. It'll now show me all these vehicle trips that occurred that maybe they were unassigned logs. If I wanted, I could go through and assign all these to myself. For today's example, I'll simply skip through this. The next screen up is actually the option to perform that asset inspection. Like Laura mentioned earlier, there's a good chance that people are skipping this and then simply driving the vehicle without inspecting their vehicles. But for my instance today, I'm going to go ahead and press inspect. The first option is you want to go ahead and choose whether it's a pre, in, or post-trip inspection. Since I haven't started my drive yet today, I will go ahead and I'll select pre-trip inspection. Another thing worth noting is there are defect lists built into Geotab. So there is a defect list for vehicles and one for trailers that are built in automatically, but these can also be customized. As you see, I've got a tester, which has a much smaller list, or I've got the defect list, which is built into Geotab that's much more advanced. This can be customized on an asset-to-asset basis. So say if you had a crane, like I showed off earlier, you can actually have a crane-specific defect list that you can follow through for your vehicles. So what you do is you go through here and you'd open up your brakes. You'd say, oh, everything looks good. If everything looks good, you simply don't touch anything here. But for my example, I'll say there actually was an issue. I'll say that my air horn or inoperable air horn, I'll say there's a defect here. And I'll say horn doesn't work. And then I can continue on my inspection. Oh, my tires look good. My wheels and rims are fine. My location of where I performed the inspection. And I can even go ahead and add any other information I might want at this time. I can even go ahead and add an inspection remark. For now, I'll leave it blank as I do have that inspection noted up here. Once I go ahead and say done, it will say I declare this is a legitimate inspection done in Alberta. I will say yes. It'll tell me that I performed my inspection in 1 minute and 22 seconds, and I'm now on duty as a driver. You can perform inspections without being an hours of service driver, and that is something that can be configured again on a driver-to-driver basis. The key is that people accessing this account, like this Geotab Drive interface, will need to be set up as a user on the Geotab interface as shown earlier here. So now we see my asset inspection needs to be reviewed because there was a defect recorded. So now on my side here, back as an administrator on the Geotab platform, I can go ahead under maintenance. I can open up that asset inspection, and I can actually look at my inspection that I just performed. So I'll go ahead and I'll press it, and we can actually see right here, the status is that it needs a repair. It's got an inoperable air horn, and that it was completed in 1 minute and 22 seconds, which again is pretty important. For a standard asset, I believe they recommend about 10 to 15 minutes. So this is a great way to verify if inspections are being done properly. One common issue that I see is that people will do their inspection, then jump in their vehicle and just scroll through and click save, and it'll be a 5-second inspection. We would recommend that people start their inspection, then get out and do the inspection with their phone or tablet in hand. That way they can note things as they see them. Plus, it's also worth noting that inspection time is actually billable hours for most organizations. So we do recommend that these inspections are done while the driver is on duty. So then obviously now we can see that there's a repair that needs to be done. I can click on this inspection and I can now go through and mark if it's been repaired or not. So right now I can see the horn doesn't work. Oh, well, good thing I just took it in and I actually resolved this issue already. And I'll say fixed today. And I can say that I signed off on the repair. I can now go ahead and I can save this information. And the vehicle, unfortunately, I deselected myself. I'll reselect myself and I'll say that that has been repaired. I can now go ahead and save and certify that inspection has been done. And that will now be marked off for the next person driving this vehicle. If I were to go back into that asset inspection for this vehicle, we will now see that that has been cleared up. So we'll go ahead and we'll select filters, choose my Subaru and apply the changes. And we can now see that it's been safe and repaired. If I were to go ahead and go back in here and do a new asset inspection for maybe a post trip, we can see that now it is not showing up as being an issue because it has been fixed. I can now simply go through and say nothing's been found and simply complete my checkout for the day. Is there a way to remove drivers assigned to vehicles without doing it one by one? We are finding vehicles are assigned to specific drivers. However, another vehicle will drive the vehicle and not complete a DVIR. The missed inspections would be under a person's name who was assigned to the vehicle. I see. So I in the past, people who assign themselves to vehicles will then take over that vehicle. So for instance, if I were to log in under a secondary account and assign myself to this asset, we will see that that now gets switched over. I don't believe I've got any testing accounts set up here. Maybe I'll just take a quick look. I do actually have one set up. What I'll do to simulate this is I'll go ahead and I'll sign into another database here. I'll sign in again as myself. I'll just bring this over to another screen here to not reveal any credentials. And I will go ahead and I'll sign in as myself here on a different screen. I'll just make sure that I'm not currently driving the vehicle on this main screen here either. So I'll go ahead and I will simply go in and I will log myself out as a driver. I'll verify my driving days and I'll keep myself logged out. So now we're logged out here, and we'll check one more time here. The vehicle now is dissociated from myself, which is actually, I guess, the best course of action. I also see I've been logged out here. But yes, ideally, once somebody else logs into that vehicle or the data or the driver logs out, it should disassociate them from the asset. Ideally, you can also go through this and do it one by one, like you said, but obviously that's not the best course of action. All right, so let's do a test here. As you see, nobody's assigned. I'll assign myself to my vehicle on my secondary account. We'll just go ahead and blast through this on my other screen here. All right, so I should be assigned now. If I were to refresh this page, we should see that a driver's now been assigned. I'll now go over to my secondary screen. I'll log in as myself, and we will see if it gives me any kind of pushback here. This is a great use case. Obviously, people do generally use vehicles one at a time. Obviously, it's tough for two people to drive the same vehicle at the same time, but we'll see what happens if it does attempt to be this way. Okay, so right now, I do see that it does say that a person's already driving this vehicle. You will be assigning yourself to this vehicle and disassociating the driver mentioned above. Would you like to continue? And then they should have the option to do yes or no for that. For this instance, I'll say yes, and I'll go ahead and I'll now switch back over to here. And ideally, we should see that JO has now been switched out to Jordan, which it has been. If you are seeing that people are still associated to vehicles without them being required, you can actually click into the vehicle itself. You can open up this select driver option, and you can select unknown driver at any time as well. That will also forcefully disassociate them from the vehicle. If NFC keys are the way you're currently assigning drivers, you can also have that set up here in the settings as well. You can go ahead and have it so the driver ID reminder is here, and it'll actually go ahead and disassociate them when the vehicle's turned off as well. All right, so hopefully that answered both the questions about where the pre and post trip inspections can be done, as well as if people can be disassociated from vehicles. If anybody has any questions about that process, please feel free to let me know. I could either go through it again here right now, or I could follow up via email as well. Let's give everybody a few minutes to type, and then we can jump back into this here. All right, let's give everybody a couple more seconds here before we jump into anything else anybody might have today. I've got one more kind of fun little feature to show off today quickly. It's definitely a safety version, a safety improvement that Geotab has made, and I think it's something that can be utilized more and more as you progress with your Geotab journey. All right, if nobody's got anything here, we will simply jump in and we will show the last feature off today. Under safety, there's a new safety center and a risk analytics. As I mentioned earlier today, we have a partnership with Go Analytics, which is basically an enhanced version of what I'm showing you here. But again, this is something that is included in your database. So what this is it's going to show you all of your vehicles in order from most to least risk. Obviously, in my environment, I've got one vehicle listed here. So we're seeing the percentages based off my vehicle alone. So right now, I've got a 6.6% chance of collision in the next 100,000 kilometers or 100,000 miles, depending on your location. It'll actually then show you your best and worst days based off that time period. So right now, it says the last 30-day period, I was at a 6.9%, and now I'm at a 6.6%, meaning that there is driving improvement going on in my environment here. This can be looked at for the last year of information as well, and we can see that maybe I was a little bit crazy back in January because 21.3% quickly went down to a much more reasonable level. So how these information is pulled here is it actually looks at every other Geotab device and compares you to fleets of similar size. So if you aren't aware, Geotab just surpassed 5 million actively tracked vehicles, so it's got a lot of information to pull from. It then compares your data in speeding, acceleration, braking, and cornering to everybody else within those fleets. Another key instance of this is it actually does look at your company type as well. If you're an off-road construction company, it will compare you to other construction companies of a similar fleet size. That way your data isn't looking at maybe a transit system that has extremely safe driving compared to somebody who's maybe doing off-road work with extremely bumpy terrain. Because obviously those kind of terrains will likely lead to a higher collision risk. Then it'll give you a score based off low, average, or high, and then that'll give you an overall percentage of collision. And like I say, this can be looked at historically, as well as this can be made into a dashboard report, which can be looked at any time. By default, it looks at information a couple of days in the past, as it does take some time and processing power to give you this graph and to give you this information. So right now it's November 4th, but the information is showing for November 2nd and previous. We can even see that in the last year, I was at a 21.3%, and I quickly went down to a 6.6% total for the year. I'm just joking. I wasn't a crazy driver last year. I just didn't install my vehicle till the very end of the year, so it didn't have any information to really go on. Another thing worth noting is your area of driving is also important. So if you're driving in a mountainous terrain where there's generally higher risk, you will very likely see a higher score overall. But as you see, it says the vehicle has been driven in areas that average a high risk for my specific area here, and I'm on the low end of that. So that's great to see. So that's another quick look into a new feature that's also come out available here for Geotab. Does anybody have any questions at all they'd like to answer today? If not, you can feel free to send me an email anytime, and I'd be happy to help out. I will provide my information here in the chat. Actually, I'll do it in the Q&A window here, so it's available for everybody. And I'll also provide the link to the support group as well here. And then the support is very similar to myself with support instead. So that is the information you'll be looking for today. If you have any questions after this is all said and done, feel free to reach out to either of those two contacts there, and we'll be happy to help you out. I'll give everybody a few more minutes here to send in any further questions. And if nobody has anything, we can close up shop for the day. Give everybody a few minutes back. There's also a poll that I just started here looking for the overall review for how this webinar went for everybody. If this gets good reviews, maybe we can go ahead and do this more often and just continue to answer these questions live for everybody. I know everybody doesn't have time to often reach out to support or call us directly. So having this 1 hour set aside, maybe monthly, could be very beneficial for everybody. And who knows, maybe somebody else will host it next time and I can be sitting on the sidelines. Hopefully that's the case and we can get more of the team involved. You guys can meet more of the team here. All right, well, I think that might be it for today. I don't see any other questions coming in. You're very welcome, Laura. Thanks so much for attending today. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know and we'd be happy to help. Thanks so much. Goodbye.